everybody. It's actually kind of special for me to be here because I think it was 2 years ago, I had been living a life where I had these two separate interests. The interests of why I'm actually here on this planet and the interest of trying to see a company through. And I kind of kept them separate. And it wasn't until a friend of mine invited me to Wisdom 2.0 that I realized that I was kind of missing the point of both by not integrating them together. And so in coming here, it was actually a catalyst for me to realize that. And I wanted to thank you all for having me up here today, because it's even a more visceral moment to reinforce that. So I am very excited to talk to you guys today and share some insights. It's this idea that I think I would reckon that a lot of you guys are here because you all believe or agree or think that maybe technology isn't the end. It's actually a means to potentially a greater end. And maybe what separates you from maybe the rest of the folks that you work with is that they feel the opposite. It is the end in and of itself. And the reason you're here is because you know that that doesn't quite sit right. There's something greater there. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. And where I'll start is when I was a child, I think I started to appreciate this point that things aren't necessarily the end, but rather means to an end. When I was a young girl, and I grew up here in San Francisco. My parents ran a small business together. And I got sent off to private school here, which was interesting because I was your classic scholarship kid. And what would happen is I'd come home every night for dinner with my sister, and my parents would say, we'd say the most ridiculous things, like, I deserve this, or I want more, or, you know, my friend got a car for her birthday, why can't I have one? And it took every night of family dinners for my parents to pound it out of us. No, you don't deserve that. No, you know, money is not just, more is not just what you want. But really what they were trying to teach us wasn't that money was bad. Money just was money. And they actually wanted to put us in this environment of a private school to realize that that wasn't the end. And that money in itself is not evil, good or bad, but rather it was just a means to potentially something greater, and it's how you use it or treat it that actually is more important. So with that, I took that lesson that money is not necessarily good or bad, it's just a means to something greater. And it really called upon this responsibility and awareness that, you know, if money's not bad or good by itself, then what really matters is the intentions you put behind how you use it. And so I actually went into finance right out of college. I'd actually watched my parents struggle for 30 years to grow their business because not once could they ever get a loan. And they essentially bootstrapped for 30 years, which sounds like hell to us fellow tech entrepreneurs. But their story was the story of every small business across America. And so I went into finance to really understand finance. And it was there that I failed for the same reasons that my parents failed, because I started working with filmmakers and theater producers on the side and to help them raise money. And I was failing because I didn't know the right people. And so what I set out to do is create a system where a company where we would completely level the playing field and make finance fair and efficient. Essentially what we wanted to do was create a place where anybody could fund what mattered to them, whatever that was, wherever that was. Because what I saw was that ideas were going unborn every day, not for lack of heart or hustle, not for lack of willingness to reach out and work hard and connect with people, but for lack of access to funding, for lack of access to the right gatekeeper that would say yes. So with that, we started Indiegogo. And so what I thought I was doing was being incredibly intentional and conscious about how, and not treating technology as an end, but really treating it as a means to an end, and in this case, the end being more efficient access to capital. But in a conversation I had with my mother, and it was actually reinforced when I was preparing to talk today with Soren on the phone, I actually realized we're doing a lot more than that. A couple years ago, my mother had a little bit of cash that she needed to put to work. And I put on my financial planning hat, and I put on, the daughter hat of, I want to take care of you. And I said, Mom, I think we should put some of this money into the market and diversify. We need to help you retire soon, so let's do that. And she looks at me with her jaw dropped. And she's like, are you crazy? Are you my daughter? Did you just see what happened in 2008? Why would I give people my money, people I don't know, who sit in ivory towers that I can't see, investing in businesses and companies that I don't understand or care about? Why would I ever do that? And it made me realize that she had a point. And when you think back to where Wall Street began, finance began, it actually began, I think the story goes, there was 24 stockbrokers that all came together, sat underneath the tree on Wall Street, and looked at each other face to face and decided, let's trade. And essentially where Wall Street began was that finance was grounded in person-to-person relationships. It was grounded in trust, human trust. And what had happened is over the course of time and over the course of the evolution of technology, technology had actually removed all sense of human trust. And that, by the 70s and 80s, finance had just become this opaque system of money management where you just throw it into the system and you couldn't really see who was really running it. You didn't know the people who were actually making those decisions for you. And as a result, you now have things, like regulations and rules that try to replace what human trust was there to do, which is more of a manufacturer type of trust. But we see because of 2008, it still didn't work. And so what you have is people like my mother who are keeping their money out of the system because they still don't trust it. And as a result, the whole system is suffering because there's less money in there to actually go create value with. So my mother said after she kind of looked at me in shock, she said, I know you. If you really want me to be responsible with my money, can I invest in you? I trust you. I know how hard you work. And it was in that moment that I realized that Indiegogo was doing more than just making access to capital more efficient again. We were actually putting human trust back into finance. And the way we were doing it is we were enabling people and encouraging people and actually now requiring people to be themselves and to be more authentic. This is the story of Max. Max didn't know Karen, the woman on the left. All he knew is that one day he woke up one morning and he saw a video that had gone viral, a video of this woman who was getting bullied on a bus by some kids because she was a bus monitor. And he was so perturbed by the situation that he felt compelled to do something about it. He saw what was needed and he needed to take action. And so he went on Indiegogo and he created a campaign to send her on vacation. He said, that's the least I can do. I don't know this woman, but she deserves a vacation. So I'm gonna go raise $5,000. A few weeks go by, $700,000 raised from all across the world, 60 countries, all people wanting to connect with Karen because they saw her story and they wanted to right a wrong that they had just witnessed. And then you have people or organizations like Black Girls Code, which, awesome organization, yes, teaching girls to code. And they used Indiegogo not just to talk about what they're doing, but why they're doing it. Unveiling the motivation behind what you're doing is hard, but it actually is what makes you vulnerable and what actually enables people who maybe don't know you to actually connect. And so what Indiegogo is providing is this vehicle for that to happen. And when people do a campaign, they often do a pitch video. We actually encourage people to do a video of themselves talking about not just what they're doing, but why they're doing it and the impact on the world. And we encourage it, and actually it's not a surprise that when people do that, they raise on average 115% more than if they don't. But what we've been learning now is that what customers tell us is that the process of actually making a video and talking about what you're trying to do in this world is really hard, because what it does is it actually gets you back in touch with your true motivations, which it's easy to kind of be blinded by the world and trying to do things for what the world thinks you want to do, but when you're actually putting yourself out there and making yourself incredibly raw and talking and telling the world what you're trying to do, it forces you to be really, really truthful. which is hard, but is incredibly nourishing. So while I thought I was being incredibly intentional and conscious about what we were doing when we were building Indiegogo, and that I wasn't falling prey to the same trap that all my former colleagues in finance were falling prey to, which is this idea that technology or finance is the end, but rather I was embracing this idea that technology is just a means to a greater end. I actually was still in a trap because what I realized is that we were doing far more than that. The end that I saw, which was efficient access to capital, has actually become a means to something greater as well, and that is putting authenticity back into finance and actually even requiring authenticity to be in finance. So with that, it makes me step back again and wonder, maybe I'm not so in control of everything, even though I thought I was. If the learning here for me, or the takeaway here, is if even as intentional as you can be, which I encourage everybody to do because we know that technology left to its own devices can result in all kinds of consequences, be open to the fact that maybe there is no end, and maybe everything that we think is an end might actually be a means to a greater end. And in this case, what I'm finding is that Indiegogo is actually helping people come back to their authentic selves, which then makes me ask the question, why is that important? Why do we need a world of more authenticity? And something tells me a world with more authenticity is good, but now it's my next chapter to go understand why. So, thank you.